Well, following the recent terror attack in Kashmir, members of the Pakistani Christian community have condemned, quite rightly and understandably, that atrocious attack, but have also indicated their own concerns over India's response. They find themselves in a rather strange place between two worlds, not particularly supported by the government of Pakistan, but not in favor of or siding with India's actions and its collective punishment or prospective collective punishment of Pakistan and its people. I'm Regan King, and joined as always by my good friend and co-host Alistair Scott, who has first-hand experience of Pakistan. Alistair.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great to be back doing Pakistan. It's in some ways it's sad that we're doing Pakistan again. It's not that long ago when we featured it, but in what's been going on in the recent weeks with the threats of war coming out of Kashmir. In fact, in reading through reports, it looks like they're almost expecting war at any time. But just what you were saying earlier about the Christians in the past. I've been working in Pakistan for many years because we started a ministry there in churches and schools and things. In those early days when I was going into Pakistan in the late 90s and early 2000s, if you spoke to Christians in Pakistan, they would be more supportive of India than Pakistan. I can remember there'd be a cricket match between Pakistan and India, and you'd expect them to be more supportive of the Pakistan team. But at the time, because India was far more benevolent, if I'm using the right word, towards Christianity than Pakistan was, they would support India and everything. Wow. But in the last few years, because now India's become far more Hindu evangelical, if I can dare to say that, and under the present regime, there is a lot of persecution against the Christians in India. There's been a slight sway. They still tend to be more supportive of India because they, being in Pakistan, they see the persecution they have in Pakistan, and it seems to them that it's less so in India. So there is being this change that's going on, and what's happening at the moment. Of course, it doesn't just affect the Christians in Kashmir and other parts of Pakistan, but it affects everybody. So it's a difficult threat coming from India to stop the supply of water. Water is an essential part of anyone's life, so I think we need to pray that that doesn't happen.
Members of the Pakistani Christian community under leadership, particularly represented by the Anglican community, Reverend Dr. Azad Marshall, President Bishop of the Church of Pakistan, which is an Episcopal Anglican congregation of churches, strongly condemn the recent terrorist attack in Pahalgam, Kashmir, and expressed deep concern over the Indian government's irresponsible threats to cut off Pakistan's water supply, a clear violation of the Indus Waters Treaty and international norms. Anglican Inc., an Anglican news outlet, has reported the community as saying, "We firmly reject India's baseless accusations against Pakistan, a tactic repeatedly employed without credible evidence. Indian allegations have often been exposed as fabrications, while India's own grave human rights abuses against Kashmiri Muslims, Christians, and other minorities are widely documented and condemned by the international community. The world is not blind to the oppression faced by the people of Kashmir and the escalating violence against Christians in India. Attempts to deflect attention by scapegoating Pakistan only further damage India's credibility." It's a difficult one for me, Alistair, because there's a few things. First of all, oftentimes we do see that a state church or a Anglican grouping generally plays the politics game, and we've seen this also in Syria with many of the more traditional churches as well, where there's a tendency to favor the powers that be and to, in some cases, corrupt though it may be, curry favor with the powers that be. So I'm not convinced personally that Dr. Azad Marshall or the individuals making that statement are fully representative of all Christians, though all Christians in Pakistan, I'm sure, condemn the heinous terror attack. I'm not convinced that all recognize are speaking about or toward India and its response as if there's injustice on its part, though they may well be heavily affected by India's threats.
I can understand, having worked there, and you meet up with the bishops and so on, with the Anglican, or the Church of Pakistan as they call that, but yes, it's the Anglican Church, and the Catholics too. And like most nations where there's a heavy control, they have to kind of, just to survive, they've got to be, as you say, curry favor, very useful word you used there for Pakistan.
That was unintentional. It was unintentional.
I almost had a smile when you used it. But it is something to survive. They have to play the game, so to speak, and fall into lines in order to be able to take the gospel and continue to practice their faith. But Kashmir itself, I mean, since 1948, when the one nation was divided into two, it's been a boiling point area, because both nations want to claim it as their own. I mean, I can remember as a child being taken up for my holidays into that area, not into Kashmir, but into the Pakistan side. But it's so beautiful. It is so beautiful with the Himalayan mountains and so on. But it's in dispute. It's disputed between the Hindus on India's side and the Islamic people on the Pakistan side. So it's never going to be a peaceful conclusion without Jesus. You know, we all know that.
Right.
We can't have peace anyway until Jesus comes and rules and reigns in his fullness. But what's happening now is probably the biggest dispute or conflict in recent years, because it's been relatively peaceful. They've kind of lived alongside each other, and then suddenly you get a major terrorist attack, and this was a terrorist attack. Yes. The terrorists definitely came from Pakistan. The main people that were killed were the Hindus in Islam, in that area, but
it wasn't state-sponsored, though.
No, exactly. It's like anything. If a terrorist attack happens in London, for instance, God forbid, it's happened in the past, and you suddenly say, okay, the nation that did that, or the people who represent a nation living in our country, because they came from that background, let's have war against that nation or take reprisals.
Right.
That would not be right.
Yeah.
And I guess there's been an overreaction, particularly from Modi, the president, prime minister in India, because he wants to be seen to be tough.
Well, and the reality is, if the Pakistani government had said, we endorse this action, or we support what was done in Kashmir, we believe, had they done that, there would be some cause. Yeah. But they've not done that. In fact, they have disputed any involvement or sponsorship of it, and have actively commented on it as a tragedy, right? So the reality is, India's response is risking flaring up a situation that doesn't need to be. But this comes at the same time as a chilling new report from human rights-focused Pakistan has revealed a dramatic escalation in the victimization of religious minorities, particularly Christians in Pakistan, in the first quarter of 2025. Christians bearing the disproportionate burden of abuse, which makes it odd then when in the statement that we were reading, it goes on to say, Pakistani Christians proudly stand shoulder to shoulder with the government and armed forces of Pakistan. I'm just struggling to see that as being said with the heart, frankly. Members of our community have served with distinction in the defense of the nation, with many even sacrificing their lives for Pakistan's freedom and security. This proud legacy, our officers, soldiers, and heroes who fought for Pakistan, testifies to the unwavering loyalty of Pakistani Christians to their homeland. Today, we remain steadfast in our commitment to defend Pakistan's sovereignty and stability. We affirm that all Pakistanis, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Sikhs, and others are united in defending the sovereignty, peace, and honor of Pakistan. But is that really the case, Alistair?
I think if you want a real true answer to that, you have to talk to the more evangelical Christians in the land, because we said it already, the state Christian church has to bow to survive.
It sounds like it's being forced almost. It sounds like a hostage statement.
Yeah, exactly. And whereas if you go and talk to individual churches which are thriving with pastoral care and so on, you will hear a different story than what we're seeing there. Of course, they understand the statehood and being part of a nation is important, but the truth is they would, and there's no doubt, you've just quoted it, they are still being persecuted as the evangelical believing Christians, the people of faith, in the nation, and this is just an add-on to have an extra threat coming from India to do with this whole problem in Kashmir is a problem on top of all the problems they're already facing.
Well, it's very difficult for Christians in Pakistan to, in any case, at any point, proudly stand shoulder to shoulder with the government, as the government has instituted all manner of laws that are actively aimed at subjugation and persecution, not the least of which is the blasphemy laws that abound. Barnabas Aid reports that many Christians and other religious minorities, as well as some Muslims, have fallen foul of Pakistan's notorious blasphemy laws, with a mandatory death sentence imposed for those convicted under Section 295C of the Pakistan Penal Code, which refers to defiling the name of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, although the sentence has never yet been carried out. In January 2023, blasphemy laws were even tightened, with the punishment for insulting the family of Muhammad increased from 3 to 10 years in prison. With blasphemy laws often used to make false accusations to settle personal grudges, and we've seen in our previous edition of the Persecuted Church on Pakistan that we dealt with that reality, and there was mob violence that occurs often as a result of this.
Yeah, I mean, I still get these reports coming back regularly from our people working in Pakistan, in Punjab area mainly, of the attacks, stonings that come against Christians in the streets. Job-wise, they will hardly ever get a job which pays the same as an Islamic person, even if they're doing the same job. Many of the churches get attacked with stones and burnings and all the rest. And these stories go on and on and on. So the persecution for the Christians in Pakistan is huge. And we've said it before on the last program. I remember, the amount of times this blasphemy law is used. People are incited to accuse a Christian. It could be a Christian pastor who's just doing his work, looking after his flock, and then he'll be accused of ripping up a page of the Quran or speaking something which in honesty he has not done. But once they're arrested and they go into the police state imprisonment, they hardly ever come out, and certainly they're living in dire circumstances. So it's not changed a lot, and despite part of the charter of Pakistan is freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of practice, all those things. But the reality is it's not being put into practice.
Yeah, one of the findings of the Human Rights Focus Pakistan report, detailed in a range of reports, document a horrifying rise in forced conversions. And Alistair, looking at video footage, is some very disturbing. And we're talking, people say forced conversions. That's such a shame that someone's forced, but they're literally, there was one video of a girl who, when I mean force, I mean they're there drawing it out with her hand, drawing it out with, and she is fighting them, and she's weeping, and she's in agony, and they're not going to kill her in that moment anyway, but they're actively forcing her to do this, and then there's abductions, there's sexual violence. So oftentimes these forced conversions take place in the process of an abduction for the sake of a marriage, a forced marriage that features a forced conversion that will then proceed to feature routine rape in that relationship. Murders targeting Christians and other minorities as well. But there's a powerful story of courage that we want to share with you just now from Global Christian Relief. Surviving abduction and persecution in Pakistan. This is Alina's story of courage.
You're sitting in the car and you're surrounded by people.
Yes. It was a big crowd going around to burn all us.
They wanted to burn you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Brian with Global Christian Relief. We're here in Islamabad, the capital city of Pakistan. The culture here is incredible, the hospitality, the beauty, the colors. We've had more tea in a few days than we have months back at home. but the challenges here are great. In a country where Christians make up less than 2% of the population and most live on less than $3 a day, strict Islamic law means that sharing the gospel can lead to imprisonment or even death at the hands of a mob. This is the story of a woman who has risked everything to share the gospel. Her name is Alina.
I saw a big hand and I heard the voice of a man. So he said, "You're my daughter, I will use you, be brave." I was very shivering.
I got chills myself when you just said that.
She said to me, "It was God's words, He wants to use you." And I said, "No, I can't do this because it's difficult to live as a Christian in this country. How I can join ministry?"
And 3 times, God kind of comes to you in those same messages.
So third time I said, "Okay, God, I'm ready."
Alina now runs a sewing center where, at great personal risk, she shares the gospel with women who come, including family members of the Taliban. However, earlier in her ministry, disaster hit while preaching in a dangerous region. You're sitting in the car and you're surrounded by people.
Yes, it was a big crowd want to burn all us.
They wanted to burn you.
Yes. Suddenly army came, they firing and they captured us. They cover our face with black mask and one man gave us to another man and one man gave us to another man. In 48 hours, we traveled 5 or 6 cities. We were for 2 months in prison.
2 months?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
While in prison, in attempts to convert Alina and her companions to Islam, they were subjected to threats and violence. They were even falsely told that their male group members had been killed, but she never gave in.
When she went into that prison, it was a very tough time. Sometimes I feel afraid because of her bravery, but I also praise God because she belongs to Jesus.
Now you're free, you're back out here.
We are not free still.
You're not free.
They have our ID card numbers, laptops, our mobiles, all things which belongs to us, they have still.
Oh, wow. Hearing Alina's harrowing story, I was deeply moved by her unwavering faith and courage. Today, she continues to spread the gospel secretly, even without her full freedom.
I never give up because I have promised with God, I will serve you. We have Jesus and we have to give Jesus to another. It is His promise, I will not let you and I will be with you forever. And I experience these things. God is not liar. He is always with me.
That's powerful. Amen.
I'm ready to go through again if God wants. Last of my day of my life, I want to serve to God.
Well, it's another very inspiring story, but it's a heartbreaking story as well, because we're hearing how difficult it is for the Christians to survive. And you know, we were talking about it before, that they are being forced into marriages, forced into just submitting to the authorities or the Islamic faith. And you know, I know from personal experience that a lot of the times these are not only forced into marriage, but they're children brides, you know, they're child brides. They are abducted when they are very young, and the parents can't do anything about it, and the church can't do anything about it because of the strength and the power of the authorities that are over them.
On a more positive story, there actually has been a very recent case of a judicial ruling in Pakistan that has returned one such child to her family, which was astounding and a very, very rare decision made in favor of a Christian family in such a circumstance. And God bless them for actively pursuing that. Many, I think, just live under a state of hopelessness and helplessness when faced with that situation, as the authorities so often turn blind eyes. to those who are innocent.
But it is also a sign, isn't it, of the Christians in the nation getting stronger in their faith, of course, but also stronger in their prayer lives, because that is a very unusual thing to happen. But it takes prayer support, it takes confidence, it takes boldness, it takes courage to endure and push through, to get the breakthrough, because you can be certain that the police force, the authorities in any part of the nation would not want to make a decision like that one decision. So I know from my personal time working with the Christian churches in Pakistan, the churches we've planted as well, they have such strong faith, they believe in God, they live within and they also believe that they are positioned where they are for a time such as this. So they are not, some of them are trying to escape and go to the Western world, but the majority of them see that they are mandated to be in the land. I believe God will have his remnant no matter how difficult situations are in every nation, because out of those will be the final harvest of souls. So these guys work tirelessly but full of faith, faithfully to take the gospel out, and prayerfully to get changes happen like the one we just talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff King, the president of International Christian Concern, has commented that Pakistan's latest wave of atrocities against Christians in 2025 is not an aberration. It is a grotesque culmination of centuries of state-sanctioned brutality and indifference. This is a nation where Christian girls are stolen from their families, forcibly converted and married off to their abusers, where a false blasphemy accusation can ignite a lynch mob, and where justice is a privilege reserved for the majority Muslim population. For too long, Pakistan has cloaked its systemic persecution in silence and impunity. The world must wake up to this crisis and hold Islamabad accountable for its shameful record.
It's absolutely true. I mean, I'm a parent, you're a parent. Can you imagine what it would be like if somebody comes into your household and enforces one of your daughter or your
only
son?
The Holy Spirit has to restrain at that point.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Because the reaction in the flesh would be, I want to kill you. I'd rather die myself than allow my daughter to be taken in such a situation. And yet these people are regularly being enforced in this way.
Truly grim.
It's a tough test of faith.
International Christian Concern's research has found, as of January 2025, there are at least 20 Christians languishing in Pakistani prisons, specifically and only on these blasphemy charges, collectively serving more than 134 years. You can do the math between those 20 for crimes that they did not commit. This is not progress, it is regression into a dark age of intolerance fueled by extremist ideology and a complicit government, according to the ICC, which calls on international community, including the US, the UK, United Nations, to pressure Pakistan to repeal its draconian blasphemy laws and protect religious minorities.
Well, I mean, generally throughout the world, you have a law system which says you're innocent till you prove yourself proved guilty. But in these nations, it's the other way around. Once you're taken in accused of anything, and they know it themselves. Once they're accused, they don't lose their faith, because they see even being put in prison is an opportunity. A little bit like Paul would say, even in prison. In Galatians, he talks about witnessing to his accusers and so on. They see it as, if God has positioned us here, there will be opportunities to share our faith and share the gospel. I mean, it's a real positive way of looking at things, but very, very tough, because they know the chance of them being able to prove themselves innocent is almost impossible, because they won't even be given an opportunity. So they have to do the best they can in what is terrible situations, because they won't only be imprisoned, they will not be fed properly, they will be facing torture and hatred from the prison enforcement people.
We've talked in a previous edition of the discrimination socially and economically. There's such marginalization of Christians in Pakistan, with discrimination toward Christians and other minorities perpetuating extreme poverty, with many working in incredibly low-paid, dirty and and dangerous jobs, working in the sewers, in the streets, cleaning latrines. Christians in Pakistan continue to be regarded as chura, which is an offensive term that has come to mean filthy, as cleaning jobs are considered impure for Muslims. The word is derived from the name of the low caste group, which most of the Christian population in Pakistan continue to be a part of. Christians currently make up 90% of the sanitation workers in Faisalabad, where there were two cousins, Sif Masih, 25, and Shan Masih, 28, suffocated in March 2024 after inhaling poisonous gases while attempting to clear a blockage in the sewer in the city. They were ordered to enter the sewer without recommended protective equipment. This is the sort of marginalization, discrimination, and danger in which Christians are placed as their lives are considered cheap. There are thousands employed as low-paid workers in the brick kilns, where they also are exposed to danger, inhaling dust, again without protective equipment, and they face extreme illness. If they encounter an emergency, they only can take a loan from the brick kiln owner as well, and so that it's kind of like a workhouse type thing that has to come from the owner. There's so much more that we could unpack. It is truly centuries of discrimination and hatred that the Christians of Pakistan face, and now they're caught between a rock and a hard place.
Exactly.
They have Pakistan and its extreme ostracization, India, its Hindu nationalism. Between any times there's a war, the Christians are going to be caught in between.
And you know, we see India is getting more powerful both economically and militarily, while Pakistan is going the other way. So you know, my personal experiences with my Pakistani Christians in the churches we've planted, they're all doing 2 and 3 jobs just to survive because of the low pay and the anti-Christian feel in the nation. So it's very important for us to understand, not only should we be praying for our friends in Pakistan and our brothers and sisters, but also in any way where you see genuine support going for Christian communities, because they are always community based. Let's get behind them and let's pray, not only for our other nations, but pray particularly into Pakistan, because they need our prayers. Bless you guys for watching, and we'll see you again soon.